Welcome to Old Man Sports Talk. I'm your host, Old Man Nate. Just give me 1 second. Try and fix something real quick. Hopefully, I can do this while I'm still on. Um, make some adjustments real quick. Let's see what that looks like. Yeah, that looks better. Okay. That's not great, but it'll work. All right. Again, welcome to Old Man Sports Talk. I'm your host, Old Man Nate. And I hope everybody had a very Merry Christmas. And this week, I hope you have a safe and happy New Year. Um, Speaking of which, this Saturday at 1 p.m. Central, that would be 2 p.m. Eastern, I'm going to have a special college football playoff preview of the two games that's going to be on this Saturday. Um, So about 2 hours before kickoff, I'm gonna come on and I'm going to do a, preview show of the college football playoff. All right, so tune in and, tell me what you think about it. Again, this is your first time watching this show, like and subscribe below and, um, become a fan of, Old Man Sports Talk. I also wanna give a shout out to a couple people. Um, HXC Gaming. Shout out to my buddy Ricky, and this is his company, HXC Gaming. You can find him on YouTube as well, and you can also find him on Twitch. Also, want to give a shout out to the person who made my tumblers for me, A and I believe it's A and C engraving. I'll get that name. I'll find out for sure if that's what it is. But I appreciate them helping me out and getting me something to show off as well. So today is going to be something that I was actually kind of really debating on whether I should even talk about it or not. Just because it's not really sports related, but there's this person in the sports world involved in this. So, um, thought that I would give a little bit of my 2 cents on it. It's, you could really spin this off into politics too, and I'm not really wanting to do that. So, I'm just gonna talk about a couple of key points, give my opinion on the whole situation, and if you agree or disagree, just leave a little 2 cents in the comments, and you know, it's your opinion. So, um, anyways, if you haven't guessed what I'm going to talk about yet, I'm going to talk about the Brittney Griner situation with her being traded um, for another prisoner we had here in the United States. So, just to give a little background, Brittney Griner was arrested in Moscow airport on February of 2021 for trying to they want to say smuggle cannabis vape into Russia. Okay. Um, And I want you to keep that in mind because there's going to be something else I bring up as well. So keep this in mind. In 2021, February of 2021, Brittney Griner was arrested for smuggling uh, cannabis oil into, um, or trying to smuggle cannabis oil into Russia. All right. Um, she in July she pleaded guilty and said she was not trying to cause any harm, wasn't trying to break the law. And, I don't know, if that's true or not. I will say if you're going and this is not her first time being in Russia. She's been going to Russia for years to play basketball and make some money over there, and nothing wrong with that, right? That's her right. But if you're going to do that, then you should get familiar with their laws and make sure, you don't break them. There's a lot of countries. I know a lot of people complain about the United States and our laws and stuff, but there's a lot of countries that are a lot worse than us when it comes to crimes and stuff. And some of them, even as as this was, okay? A lot of people and one of the things I heard was, oh, she got which by the way, she ended up when she pleaded guilty in July, she was sentenced to 9 years in Russian prison. All right. And a lot of people said 9 years, that's way too much. Well, I'm not saying you're right. I'm not saying you're wrong. But I will say there is, people right here in your own country that are behind bars, serving prison time for doing just that or less, and they got more time than that. Okay. Um, the reason that this is even a big deal is because she's an athlete, because she dribbles a basketball, because she is s 6'11" or however tall she is and can dunk a basketball as a woman, you know? Um, she's I could get into the politics as well, that the reason it's a big deal, but I'm not gonna do that. This is sports. I'm just gonna keep it, as much sports related as possible, alright? Um, but I will say that you know, there was some discussion on was it the right trade or not. And personally, I'm going to say no. It was not right to do for the United States. We should not have made the trade. And you're going to say, "Well, old man Nate, why? Why? When she's a part of our country, we got to get her back." I agree. All right, she is an American citizen. We should try to fight to get not only her, but all of our American citizens that are in prison in other countries to try and get them home. Okay. And a lot of them are for little bitty stuff like that. Now if you kill someone over another country, you know, I really don't think that we should be fighting for you. Right. Um, but that wasn't the case here, and it's not the case in a lot of American citizens that are prisoners behind bars. So, um, let me break it down why I don't think it was a good idea. Now, first of all, we traded Brittney Griner, um, who smuggled or attempted to smuggle vape, I'm sorry, cannabis oil vape canisters into Russia for a guy by the name of Victor Bout, or as they like to call him, Merchant of Death. Yes, Merchant of Death. So we traded a again, I'm going to say this again so you understand, a cannabis oil vape canister smuggler for the Merchant of Death. Now you say, well, what did the Merchant of Death do? Well, let me let me tell you what he did. Okay, he is an arms dealer. Now, before you get crazy and say, "Oh, we got those over here. It's not that big of a deal. We have, you know, Smith and Wesson and, you know, some other weapon suppliers over here that they do the same thing. It's not that big of a deal." Well, it's not. It's way different, all right? We're not talking about somebody who was smuggling in 9 millimeters or shotguns or, um, even the, um, semi-automatic weapons of any sort, which 9mm is semi-automatic. So, um, anyways, we're not talking about somebody who did that. This guy, and it's not like he smuggled in, people who smuggled in a couple hundred. This is, we're talking about somebody who supplied terrorists to fight against other countries. All right. Um, he so he supplied into May 2006. He had a carrier that went missing that had 200 over 200,000 AK-47s on them that was in transit from Bosnia to Iraq. In May 2006, his carrier that was, uh, which tells me it was probably a ship, uh, that was traveling from Bosnia to Iraq and was carrying over 200,000 AK-47s disappeared. Why is that? Because he was using them to supply Taliban and Al Qaeda. Okay. Um, he wasn't just able to get AK-47s. He was able to get surface to air missiles. In fact, when he got arrested, he was actually the United States was doing an undercover sting operation on him, partnered with Colombia, and they had set up a meeting in Thailand, and he agreed to the supply Colombia with 100 surface to air missiles and armored piercing rocket launchers. That's military stuff. That's not something you buy on the street. That's not something you buy. You go to any weapons store here in the United States and buy. You can't buy none of that stuff. You can't even go to these gun shows and buy that stuff. All right. This is why it's a big deal. Um, when I first said my disagreement on the whole situation, and I said that he was um, a terrorist and he was an arms dealer, the feedback I got was, "Well, we got one down. You take him off the street. There's another one waiting." That is true. However, that doesn't mean you put him back out on the street to allow what you already had running, and you give it another guy, let him do his dirty work too. All right. So, um, this, and again, we're not talking about somebody who is in the black market as far as selling 9mm and handguns and shotguns and AK-47s to somebody in the you know to gangs and stuff like that. No, he's not doing that. That's small time. That's too small for him. He's telling it to the Taliban, to Al Qaeda, to these terrorist groups that are not only fighting the United States, they're fighting all over the world. He also had a partnership with, I want to make sure I say his name right here, uh, Muammar Gaddafi. He was the leader of Libya. He had a relationship with him. He was supplying him with weapons too. These guys are not, again, they're terrorist groups. They fight people all over the world. He also supplied um, uh, terrorist groups in Africa, and I already mentioned Taliban and Al Qaeda, but also other groups in the Middle East. So we're not talking about some guy who sold weapons to gangs or to some guy who sold weapons in LA, you know? No, that's small time compared to this guy. All right. Um, so that's why I think it was a bad trade when you just look up the heads up, what we gave up and what we got in return. Yeah, we got our American citizen home, but she wasn't the only one in prison over there. I mean, I know it's been talked about. There was also a a Marine over there by the name of Paul Whelan. Everybody's talked about him, um, about how originally he was supposed to be in the plan and it didn't happen. Okay. Um, there's no excuse for it not happening. Okay. None. Our country's has gotta do a better job of not being a pushover and just giving a one-on-one when it's this big of a deal, all right? Now, if we would have done a one for one and the person that we had did the same thing or close to the same thing as Brittney Griner, I would not be sitting here complaining. I'd be happy we got Brittney home, and I think it was a fair trade, but this is not even close to being a fair trade, all right? If you wanna compare it to sports related, it's like trading, Tom Brady for, Brock Purdy, the last pick in the draft. Now, granted, I'm taking Brock Purdy doing pretty good for the 49ers right now, but you're talking about a Hall of Fame legend for somebody who's played 4 games. Um, you just don't make those types of trades when it comes to sports. You'd be like, I'll admit, Tom Brady's on the way out, but he's still performing at a high level, and he's still doing pretty good, so you're not gonna make that trade. Um so let's talk about what did Paul Whelan do? Well, first of all, he was arrested in Russia in 2018, accused of spying, and in 2020. All right. So he was actually charged in 2020 and he was sentenced to 16 years. Now, there's no proof that he was a spy. His family's denied everything. Um, we haven't had any contact with him. So I don't know what they have as far as proof of him being a spy or not. But I will say he's a Canadian native that has citizenships in not only the US, but also in the UK and in Ireland. I'm assuming he's also Canadian citizenship too. It just said he was a native of Canada. So assuming he's also got citizenship in Canada. So that's 4 citizenships he has. I didn't know a person could get that many. And I'm not sure why he has that many citizenships. He is a former Marine, okay? Um, but there really is no proof that he was a spy. All right. So I mean, we could have got him home too. All right. But here's what I'm really going to focus on today. Okay. Um, this has not been talked about at all, as far as I know. Matter of fact, has anybody heard of Mark Fogel? No? You haven't heard of him? Yeah. Kind of shocking. He's another American citizen over there. And he was arrested in January of 2021 at Russian airport for traveling into the country with cannabis for um, medical purposes. He has back issues, like his spine. I don't know exactly what has happened to his spine, but he has severe spine issues. So he was taking cannabis for that. Now, again, as I mentioned earlier, if you're going to travel to another country, you might want to know what their policies are on that. So that's him being stupid, not finding out that he should have been, cannabis ain't allowed over there. They're not going to put up with it. So, yeah, he's got to do a better job of, finding out what the laws are. All right. But as I mentioned, he was arrested just 1 month prior to Brittney Griner for doing the same thing that Brittney Griner did. Now, we all remember we already talked about how everybody said Brittney Griner got 9 years, and that was way too much, way too much. That's nothing compared to what Mark Fogel got. Mark Fogel got 14 years in a in hard labor camp. Now, he's got a back issue. That 14 years is gonna feel like 30, and he's probably Probably, I mean, I don't know what happens over in those other countries, we see things, we don't know if they treat prisoners, good, if they beat them, stuff like that, we don't know, um, but I know that there's a lot of countries that are a lot worse off when it comes to United States, when it comes to how they treat people, alright? So, keep that in mind, and, um, I just really, really do not understand how this didn't get no attention at all. The same the same offense, just 1 month earlier, we had an American citizen break the same crime that Brittney Griner did, and he's still sitting over there. In fact, he wasn't even really mentioned in the trade. Why not? He should have definitely been over there in the trade, okay? He did the same offense. So, if you can't tell me that he shouldn't have been neglected, and the media is not giving it no attention, all right? I know Brittany, has said that they need to fight for Paul Whelan. I agree, but we also need to fight for Mark Fogel. Mark Fogel needs to be involved in these conversations to get him home. Now, um, I kinda mentioned why I thought the trade was unfair. I wanna talk about how there was a trade done during the time that all 3 of these guys were captives or prisoners. There was a trade done during that time, and so we as a president in our country, we have showed we can do an equal trade. Trevor Reed, also a former Marine. Now, I'm not sure what his crime was, but he was released in April of 2022. So just 2 months after Brittany was arrested and 3 months after, Mark was arrested, he was released in exchange for a Russian pilot named Konstantin Yaroshin Yaroshinto Yaroshinto. I hope I said that right. Probably didn't know. I apologize. Not trying to butcher nobody's name. Um, he was a Russian pilot who was convicted of drug smuggling in 2011, and he was sentenced to 20 years. So he did about half. He did 11 years of his time, maybe 10 and a half. I don't know exactly when in 2011 he was sentenced. So, but I think overall before he actually says he ended up doing 14 years when you consider when he was actually arrested till the time that, he was actually convicted. So he did about 14 years, and, um, and then he was traded. That was a good trade. That was a good trade. He was just a drug smuggler, okay? He wasn't out there trying to kill the world like Merchant of Death was. So we have shown, even under the same president we have right now, that we can do an equal trade. But we did not do an equal trade this time, not even close. We got 3 American citizens over there in Russia right now, or we did have. No, I'm sorry. We do still. Well, there could be more. All right, we did have three American citizens over there for petty crimes or not even proof of crimes, and we did a one for one for a small time cannabis oil drug smuggler for the Merchant of Death. That's sad. Okay. It caused harm to not only the United States, but it caused harm to the rest of the world as well. And we got to do better than that. We have got to do better than that. Go get Mark Fogel and go get Paul Whelan. We need them home as well. So again, I'm not trying to make this political, so that's enough for me. I appreciate everybody um, listening to this, and again, leave your comments, like and subscribe below. I appreciate everybody's feedback. And thank you again. This is Old Man Nate. God bless.